Let's get a word from Harrison Allman-Varty, Conservative councillor for Oatlands and Burwood Park. Good afternoon to you, Harrison. Nice to have you back with us.
Good afternoon, Ian. I'm actually surprised I am back, I'll be honest. I forgot to mention it was your birthday last time I was on. I didn't say happy birthday, and with the direction that we're heading in, that's probably going to end up being a non-crime hate incident.
Well, in fact, it's been reported, yes. Although it depends where you look online, will tell you whether it's my birthday or not, because apparently I have a birthday in January, one in May, one in October, and Christmas Day. So,
well, I'll take it back then.
Yeah, so there may have been no need. I can't remember which birthday it was. So it was somebody's birthday, though. But that, of course, absolutely would have been a hate incident, Harrison. And so it's good that we've made up on that one, and we're moving on. It's worth having a little listen, by the way, to remind ourselves. Alison Pearson, the Telegraph journalist, who's had this non-crime hate incident thing happen to her just last weekend. She was appearing with Julia here on Talk yesterday. Let's have a listen to what she said.
Well, do you remember after the Southport riots, I think the actual Home Office tweeted, think before you post. It's a real big brother thing, isn't it, really? And if someone like me, like you, I try to speak out for normal people, what normal people's reaction was, I think we can agree most people watching you will not be thinking this is a brilliant use of police time. They'd quite like someone to come around and investigate their burglary.
Absolutely spot on. It's worth saying, Harrison, that from the information we have, and it could be more than this, police recorded 13,200 of these non-crime hate incidents last year.
It's nuts. I mean, she raised such a great point in that she's got a platform. And to think about all those people, and most people are quite compliant. You know, if someone gets a knock at their door from the police, that's scary enough, and they'll think, I'll never say anything like that again, because the prospect of, you know, having some sort of record, losing your livelihood and all that is just not worth it to make a kind of a risque joke online. So this is how woke has been so successful, because it's a scary thing, isn't it? I mean, it's a case of, okay, if you're in a company and you're on a group call and they're talking about things that you don't necessarily agree with, why would you speak up? Sure, you might feel a bit better about yourself and make your point, but the consequence is you've lost your job, and then that's it. Yes. So this is why woke appears so strong, but in my opinion isn't. You know, the whole silent majority thing comes into place because people feel as if they can't speak. They might get a knock at the door, they might lose their job. So the correct answer is to either agree or stay silent. And that's how it is riddled its way in, really. I mean, I think the whole thing with that journalist is nuts, because Sussex Police, I think the police don't even know what it is, because Sussex Police called it a non-crime hate incident, but Essex Police didn't say it was that, and they said it was hatred under the Public Order Act.
Yes.
So the police can't define it. It's all just nuts.
No, nobody can really define it. And the other thing, you know, it's worth noting, if there were 13,200 of these incidents, I'm going to suggest that if each one of these incidents took an hour to investigate, and I think the smart money would say it probably took a lot longer in terms of getting the detail, visiting the person that made the complaint, then visiting the person who created the complaint. But let's say, to be really generous, that each incident took 2 hours. Then we are looking at 26,400 police hours taken up with non-crime hate incidents. Now,
well, yeah, I mean,
that is a lot of police time, right?
I just did a bit of maths on my phone, and if that was 13,200, is that across the year then?
That's across the year, yeah.
Right, so that's 36 a day.
36 a day, yeah.
On average, which is nuts. It's nuts. So how come they've got time to go around to people's houses to talk about Twitter posts, but they don't have time to talk about your bike that was stolen or your car that was nicked?
Absolutely.
I mean, the optics of this alone are rubbish. I mean, even if crimes were being solved at record rates, it's still not a good thing.
It's not. And if I've got my calculations right here as well, Harris, just another stat on this. If it was 13,200 incidents divided by 24, as in hours of the day, that would be 550 days. I think I've got that right.
Well, yeah,
taken collectively, 550. So it's, you know, we're looking at nearly 2 years worth of police time to investigate non-crimes.
It's nuts. I mean, what is a non-crime? I didn't even know what a non-crime was.
Well, it's not a crime. We know that, right?
So what is it? Well, if it's not a crime, why does it involve the police?
Correct. Because, and here's the most sinister thing. The Prime Minister said, this is the bit that I find the worst aspect of the story, Harrison, and arguably one of the worst things I've ever heard from a Prime Minister, because this is how these people in Number 10 think. The Prime Minister came under fire. He said he supported police action to capture data on incidents and comments which are not serious enough to constitute a crime. The Prime Minister of our country supports the idea of the police capturing comments that are not necessarily crime. Essentially, policing our words and our conversations.
That might not even be comments online anymore. You might be 9 years old, someone might stink, you call them smelly, you go for a job in your 20s, and something flags up. I mean,
so, yes, there you are in the interview room, and suddenly they open up the file and say, "Ah, you're the smelly fish kid, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're that one that called the little boy the smelly fish. You can't employ somebody like you."
There's a line which I like, and that's, in order to think, you have to risk being offensive.
Yeah.
And I think that people have forgotten that. And it's just nuts. I mean, not going to lie, I went to a nice school, and there were worse words thrown around than smelly. So, I mean, good luck to them.
I'm glad you didn't say it out loud, Harrison. Otherwise, you might not be sitting here. You'll be in Pentonville.
Well, exactly.
Who knows?
Careful with my words.
Indeed.
They're turning into hall monitors. That's what they're doing.
Absolutely right. Stay with us, Harrison. We're going to be back with some more from Harrison Allman-Varty in a couple of moments' time. Conservative, the youngest Conservative councillor in the land. There it is. More views on the big stories of the day. NHS staff reported over the Free Palestine badges, and the man who dressed as a bear to trash his own car in an insurance scam. This is extraordinary, this, sir. If you haven't heard it, details on the way. Bank holiday air traffic controller, Harrison, if you saw this, the air traffic control meltdown, which delayed 700,000 incidents, was caused by a remote worker whose password didn't work. It just didn't happen because he was working from home. So, unfortunately, work from home, clearly based on this one story, must stop right now because it's delaying people's holidays.
You're focusing on the negatives there, Ian. The guy is able to save a bit of money on his transport, and he's able to get a bit more sleep. So we've got to weigh that up.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like, I think, you know, astronauts should be working from home as well, and pilots and police officers.
Absolutely. Pilots working from home. It's worth having a listen, by the way, to what, you know, when you miss your flight or something goes wrong, it does create a lot of, you know, human beings discombobulate at these points. You end up having, you know, a meltdown in the airport. Have a listen to this.
There's no flight. Just say there's no flight.
Oh, is that it? But really? Was that really worth a clip? I thought I was going to watch like a 30-minute piece of action. It was meant to be longer. There we go. Nonetheless, Harrison, you get the taste of what these things cause.
Reenact it for us, Ian.
Oh, God, you don't want that at the moment, believe me. My Oscar-winning capabilities are really not that sharp, I promise you. But it's interesting, isn't it, that down to a password, that this thing happened, or a forgotten password.
Yeah, it's nice to know that things such as air traffic control is really airtight like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if any of you are getting a flight this afternoon or tomorrow, find comfort in that.
Absolutely right. Here's a story that should disturb everyone. Bart's Health NHS Trust in London is reviewing its new uniform policy after complaints from Jewish patients because staff were wearing Free Palestine badges and also seen wearing a football shirt with a political message on it. Now, I would have thought that something that is clearly a contentious issue, there would be no place for that in the health service when clearly neutrality on absolutely everything is key. Why a patient, Jewish or otherwise, but in particularly Jewish, would want to see that and feel comfortable, or anybody thought they should feel comfortable, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's strange. It's twofold, really. First of all, if you went into just an ordinary workplace, you worked at a bank and you wore, let's say, something that was, there were only two sexes, you'd probably be told to take it off and stop being so silly. But I think it's the second point is that the type of environment they're in. It's the one that involves you being around so many different people. But you're clearly trying to push some sort of message on as many people as you can. I think it's just odd. I mean, imagine if it was something a little bit more, let's just say it wasn't left and it was on the right, and it was something that was, you know, stating a fact that there are two biological sexes.
Oh, now you're being silly,
What would
Harrison,
happen?
honestly. Really? I mean, that's the kind of thing I should report you for a non-crime hate incident, frankly.
I know there's probably the people watching now. The phone line is probably jammed with the amount of calls going.
Coming up with controversial stuff like that.
In a
Two biological sexes. Who do you think you are?
Yeah, in a hospital. I mean, imagine that. Imagine discussing male and female at a hospital.
Absolutely crazy stuff. This story is one of my favourite stories of the week, and this is the residents of Southern California who face insurance fraud charges after claiming £112,000 for damage caused to their cars by a bear. Now, that in itself would not be unusual in Southern California. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see what's happening here. So obviously they reported it and said, look, the bears are on the loose, they're wrecking the cars, we need to claim for it. Turned out that the bear in question was identified as a person in a bear costume. A biologist confirmed the bear was in fact human, and a raid recovered a bear suit, fur, claws and metal tools from the house. I mean, it's a fairly, I would imagine, ingenious as somebody thought this was, it was never going to be hard to rumble it, really, was it, if there's footage of it?
You know, I'm offended, Ian. I think if that person's identified as a bear and a doctor's come around and said, actually, we think it's a human, but whoa, there you go, forget your insurance claim. There's your civil, whatever, you know.
Yes, I identify as a bear.
There you go. That's what they should be doing. I think, you know, I like the comments on the Telegraph, which they had. I don't think there are any claws that cover that one.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
At least it wasn't a Ferrari. Barefaced liars.
Yeah.
The insurer will now be able to claw back the payout. Yeah, there's a couple good ones from there.
How very bear they, you know, that kind of stuff. There's, I mean, actually, when you look at the video, and I'm seeing it now, I think the movement of the bear is quite human-like. It's exactly what a human would do if they wanted to impersonate a bear.
I think he's missed a trick. He should have just said identify as a bear, case closed, especially in California.
Yeah.
They give you a medal as well.
Shouldn't they just have... Well, that's very true. Yeah, he would have been probably enlisted into government as a, I don't know, the health spokesman or something. But yes, and they could quite clearly see that the scratch marks in the car did not come from a bear. I mean, that's quite easy. You haven't got to be a forensic expert to realise that these... I mean, they're terrible scratch marks.
Wouldn't it just be easier to put some meat in the car and maybe attract a bear rather than... I mean...
Well, yes, I was going to say, actually if you want to do this, use a real bear. There's loads of them in Southern California. So, you know, I don't know, catch a bear, let it go, put some honey in the car, and then your car will be sufficiently wrecked, and then you can make your claim.
I should probably say if my insurer is watching, I've got no intention of doing that, but I'm saying if they were smart. But yeah, I don't know. They've missed a few tricks here, so maybe I guess they deserve it.
Well, we couldn't really do it in this country unless you wanted to, you know, I don't know, dress up as a fox, but that would be... I mean, there's limitations, clearly, to that particular rule.
Or a really big hedgehog, if they're only allowed.
A very, very big hedgehog, something sort of Masked Singer-style size. Maybe we could do that. Listen, Harrison, thank you as ever. Here's Harrison Allman-Varty, Conservative councillor